Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to another episode of the Dirty Birds and Brews podcast presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Kevin Knight at Falcoholic. Kevin, we are here to bring you a not as exciting as we hoped edition of the Hate Week preview with the Falcons taking on the Saints here in Week 12. The Atlanta Falcons have basically had their wings clipped, pardon the silly metaphor there, with the loss of Michael Penix Jr. for the season and a rash of other injuries, including another potential season-ending injury that happened during Friday's practice that we're going to talk about. So we're going to spend, unfortunately, quite a long time going over the Falcons injury report because it is lengthy once again for Week 12. And also take a look at what we've heard about the Saints so far. They are pretty late getting theirs out, so not going to get the game statuses, unfortunately, for this show. But at this point, Falcons in dire straits on the injury front, and it's not looking good going into a game against the New Orleans Saints, which, for the record, the Falcons are currently 1.5-point underdogs to the New Orleans Saints, one of the only teams in the NFL with a worse record than them. Obviously, it's in New Orleans. It's not a huge spread there, but pretty sad state of affairs for a Falcons team that thought they had playoff aspirations. We know the truth now, unfortunately, but we're going to get to this game, what it means, what matters, how the Falcons can go about trying to take down the Saints, who have their own issues, obviously, but Atlanta's issues in this one are stacking up so high that I'm not sure I can see the football field, and this could be a dark game for Atlanta, depending on how everything shakes out on Sunday in terms of these injuries that we're talking about. But let's go ahead and get right into that. So first, we're going to take a look at the Falcons injury report, which is very lengthy. I believe on Friday there were, I think, like 15 players on the injury report, roughly, which you never like to see. Now, a good number of those were players that were upgraded to full participation, which that's not bad, but still quite a few players out. 15 would be like almost a fourth of the roster at this point. So pretty, I think it's actually more than a fourth of the roster. So that's not good. You never want to see that. But in terms of game status, what we have is 4 players declared out, and one of them, obviously, we heard earlier in the week, and that's Drake London. He's not going to play with his knee injury, although the Falcons are saying they think he has a chance to play in Week 13, so that would be nice. But going into this game, Falcons not really going to have much at receiver. That's pretty obvious. The other injury that is brand new as of Friday is cornerback Billy Bowman Jr., who left Friday's practice with an Achilles injury, and what has been said is that it is not good. And if it's an Achilles injury and it's not good, you guys know what that means. Probably a torn Achilles for Billy Bowman Jr. in November, which would be a colossal and catastrophic injury, and probably keep Bowman out up until the start of next season or even later, given the timeline where we are in the season. So that would be huge. So we'll see what the news is officially on that. But he's out for the game after finally coming back from his own injury previously a couple weeks ago. Looks like he's probably going to miss extended time at the very least. Josh Woods is out again with the hamstring injury, and Zach Harrison is out again with the knee injury. Zach Harrison's probably the Falcons' best defensive lineman, so that is a big loss, obviously. In terms of the questionables, a lot of important names on here too. Leonard Floyd upgraded to questionable this week. He was out the last 2 games. We'll see if he can make his return. Chris Lindstrom, questionable as well. You don't like to see that, but it does appear like, Lindstrom has been playing through this injury. I expect that to continue. The other player to monitor would be Matthew Bergeron, who's also questionable. He was upgraded to full practice on Friday, so it seems like he's likely to make his return. We'll see. Falcons also could be getting some really important reinforcements at the linebacker position. Divine Diablo, who was one of the best players on this defense, one of the biggest surprises this season. He is back. He was practicing in full today. On Friday, and that's great news. He is questionable, but it seems like he's on track to come back. And then Malik Verdon, who we haven't seen at all this year, he was on the NFI during training camp, a safety to linebacker convert. The Falcons were pretty excited about it. I mean, they've kept him around. They're bringing him back to the roster. So Verdon could also make his return this week, which could be a boost to the linebacking core. We don't really know. He's a UDFA that we didn't ever see practice, so don't know much about that, but hopefully he can give them something. I think he's at least an intriguing player. So that's where the Falcons currently are with injuries. Zach Harrison and Drake London are clearly the biggest losses. Billy Bowman is a big loss as well. As sort of up and down as he's been in coverage, as an aggressive rookie that is known for that. Teams have kind of gone after him a bit, and I think he's responded well. But the good news is that the Falcons, two other corners that had missed the last couple games, D. Alford and Mike Hughes, both off the injury report, both going to be back this week. So if Bowman is going to miss time, the good news at least is that Hughes will be back playing outside, and D. Alford can slot back into the slot. So hopefully they'll be able to maintain what's going on there. Brandon Dorless also off the injury report after being questionable last week. So no one else here seems to be alarming at all. I know Watts had an illness, and he apparently was full participant, so he's okay. I know the Falcons rested some players. So I don't think there's any other concerns on this list, but that, obviously the guys that are out are a big deal, Drake London being the main one. Not really sure that this offense is going to be functional without him. So, we'll see. Like I said, still haven't seen the Saints injuries. If those do come in, I will try to grab them. I'm hoping they will. I mean, at this point, they really should have gotten these out by now. But, I can give you what we heard earlier this week, which is that there are currently a couple Saints players that are not practicing. And one of them was Talisi Fuaga, who has missed a couple games. He was a limited participant on Thursday after missing Wednesday's practice. I know Brandon Cooks is not practicing for non-injury related reasons, so I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. But otherwise, Kamara's been limited. I don't know if there's any concern about him missing time. And that's really it for the Saints. I think the Saints are fairly healthy at this point. They obviously have some players on IR like Eric McCoy, who's not playing. But Talisi Fuaga would obviously be a big get for him to come back into the lineup. So I'm sure we'll get an update at some point today, and I'll let you guys know when we do. But until then, we will see what happens with the Saints. But definitely in a better shape health-wise than Atlanta at this point. That much is abundantly clear. So the big question for Atlanta is, what's this going to look like with Kirk Cousins at the helm? We did see a different playlist at practice. I know that was a funny sort of look behind the curtain at how the playlist changes with Kirk Cousins maybe calling the shots there. But, at this point, what we've seen from Kirk Cousins, who was supposed to be like, well, yeah, we're paying him a lot of money and we can't get out of the contract. So, I don't blame the Falcons for not cutting him. I maintain that cutting him was dumb. I also think it was really dumb to not take whatever offers they got for him. The Falcons seemed to be just totally adamant that they deserved more for Kirk Cousins and they weren't going to pay any of his contract and all this. They could have traded him and should have traded him. I firmly believe that, and they asked for too much over and over, and teams were like, we're not doing this. This is ridiculous. And those teams were right. So, now they're stuck with him and that $10 million next year. The best case scenario now for Atlanta is that Cousins can play well over the back half of this season, can put some good tape out there and go get like a real starting caliber contract with another team. Because if that happens, Kirk Cousins' $10 million roster bonus will be offset by that other contract in terms of salary cap space. So the Falcons could get a big, cap refund if he goes and signs like a $15 million stopgap contract somewhere or whatever. So that would be the best case scenario, right? Save a little bit more money on the contract. There's still an opportunity to do that. We'll see if that ends up working out or not for this team. But that's kind of the best case that the Falcons can hope for at this stage. But looking at these matchups, the Falcons offense with Kirk Cousins, I have no faith at this point. What we've seen has been really bad. Like he can't get the ball very far downfield at all. He can't move in the pocket. And the Falcons' protection wasn't really even good enough to keep Penix, who clearly can move, keep him from getting hurt, and I think it's only a matter of time until Kirk Cousins gets hurt. If they can't clean up the blitz pickups, they have been so bad at letting unblocked rushers into the backfield. I just don't know that Kirk Cousins is going to be able to survive that. I certainly hope they can get that fixed up for him, because it's going to be a rough situation otherwise. And even with Michael Penix, this is one of the worst offenses in the NFL. Under 20 points a game, 27th in points. Embarrassing, considering the talent here. It's inexcusable. In terms of yardage, they're a lot better. They do move the ball frequently, but they just can't get the ball in the end zone or sustain drives. They're 16th in yards, which I think that's probably closer to where they are, but points are what matters, right? And they're not scoring them. So the good news is that the New Orleans Saints offense has been worse. They are tied for 30th with 15.5 points per game. They are a very, very bad offense, and that extends to the yardage as well. Under 300 yards a game, which is 26th. And in terms of yards per play, they are 28th. So this is a bad Saints offense. Looking at the defenses for these teams, I think the Falcons defense on the whole has played well, but they've really been victimized the last couple weeks. They're down to 19th in scoring. In terms of total yardage, they're down all the way to 16th. And after last week's game, they've not only lost their number one pass defense ranking, they've fallen all the way to 6th with 188 pass yards per game allowed. Their net yards per attempt tanked as well. Now they're at 12, and we already know the Falcons' run defense is awful. They're 28th in the NFL, allowing almost 140 rushing yards per game. So this defense has not held up over the course of the season, and they're not. Part of that obviously is the offense and them not pulling their weight. In terms of time of possession, the Falcons are one of the worst teams in the NFL. Like last week against the Panthers held the ball for 10 more minutes, I believe, maybe even more than that. So you just can't have that. That's going to lead to your defense giving up scores, giving up points, and getting run on when you can't keep the ball out of the opponent's hands. New Orleans defense has not been great either, obviously. I think the Saints have been relatively solid, but it's not been particularly good. But 22nd in points, 25 points per game, so just a little bit worse than Atlanta's in terms of yardage. The New Orleans Saints, hold on, I just saw this they've been pretty good, in terms of yardage. I would say 317.5 points per game, or excuse me, yards allowed. Points, that would be crazy. Yeah, not getting there, but this is an okay defense in my opinion. I think they're pretty good against the pass, and against the run that they've been a bit more vulnerable. But ultimately, I think they're not that bad of a defense. I think the defense is mostly fine there. I think they've given up quite a few turnovers, on offense, and that's kind of colored things. The Saints team has been pretty competitive most weeks. With Tyler Shough, who's just played a handful of games now. I'm not sure they're significantly better. I don't really think they are. Obviously, his first game was really bad. He did some good things, against the Panthers in week 10. But, other than that, I'm not really sure what to think about this Saints team. So we will see, obviously, on Sunday. I think these are two teams that have nothing to play for. They've both been all but mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. And, on Sunday, we're going to see what I think is the purest form of this rivalry, right? They got nothing to play for but their hatred of each other. The Falcons and Saints going at it in New Orleans. Nothing on the line except bragging rights. It's really the most wholesome version of this rivalry. So we'll be able to enjoy these two teams just probably beating the crap out of each other, and Kirk Cousins has no love for New Orleans either, given his history. So this is certainly going to be an interesting one. I think for the Falcons, you just have to be able to run the ball, and the defense has to be able to stop New Orleans' offense. Their offense is really bad. If you can't stop it, you're not going to get very far. I think that the run game is the key. You're not going to be able to move the ball through the air. Kirk Cousins has shown you nothing, and you don't have Drake London either. So you're going to be pretty reliant on Bijan and Algier to make this thing go, and we'll see if that's enough to beat a bad Saints team. I don't know that it will be, but they have to find a way. And that would be the path of least resistance, in my opinion, to simply pound the rock and try to keep Kirk Cousins from throwing the football, if at all possible. But more than likely, you're going to be doing what the Falcons typically do, which is they're going to telegraph their plays, and they're going to get behind the sticks and then force Kirk Cousins to throw like 30 or 40 passes, and it's not going to look great. So I hope that they can do better than we expect. This is New Orleans. I will never ever root for the Falcons to lose to the Saints. If you're going to win any games this season, they need to win these two. They got to win these two Saints games. So pull out all the stops. Zach Robinson, use all your powers, however limited they may be, to find a scheme that's going to get you through this game with a win. And then again, obviously in week 18, in your home building, get another win here and sweep the New Orleans Saints. But there's not a lot of positive energy around this team, and it looks like they might be dealing with another season-ending injury. We'll see how Divine Diablo is coming back from his own injury. He was such a critical piece of this defense. Hopefully that can help. Mike Hughes will be back outside. That should help. D. Alford has been their top depth corner, and he's had to play a lot because of kind of constant injuries in the secondary, and he's been good when he's played. Obviously not been perfect, but Natrone Brooks really got roasted last week. Falcons kind of hung him out there to dry and did not give anybody else a chance. They gave Kobe one series and he looked good, and he was back on the bench. So not really sure what the plan is there, but hopefully we don't have to see Brooks at this point. Hopefully Brooks can get back to his solid play, which we have seen Brooks look good, but maybe he's more of a slot guy. So guys, it's a dark time. The Falcons are one loss away at this point from being eliminated from the playoffs, maybe two in terms of mathematics, or like at least for a couple more weeks. But we're just in a dark spot where we're kind of, the most interesting thing is asking ourselves if Raheem Morris will be fired after another loss, and I know some people might be rooting for a loss this week to get him fired, and I would say no, absolutely not. We got to beat the Saints. I don't care if it means Raheem stays through the end of the year. It doesn't matter much to me, whether he gets fired now or later. But I do think you got to beat the Saints. If you can't beat the Saints, if you can't summon your pride for that, then you can't be a Falcon, right? That's our, when nothing else is there, the Saints are always there to be the team that you go out and beat the crap out of, no matter what. And that's what needs to happen here. That's what I'm rooting for, and I hope that's what you're rooting for too. But guys, we really do appreciate you. I know the season's not gone the way we wanted. Week 12, we're already done with talking about the playoffs. But we appreciate everyone still tuning in, and we'll continue to sort of morph our coverage more into future-focused stuff. We'll start talking about the draft, because the Falcons could be in line for a very high second-round pick, which you can get some first-round talent in that spot. We'll be talking about coaching candidates and all that stuff that's coming down the pike as well. So stay tuned. Don't get too emotionally invested in this Falcons team anymore. It's not worth it. But in the meantime, you can hang out with us, and we'll find ways to laugh through the pain here in Atlanta, in another lost season, which is really disappointing on many levels. But we do thank you so much for tuning into Dirty Birds and Brews, presented by FanDuel. If you haven't yet liked and subscribed to the show, you could do that now. We'd really appreciate that. Thank you. If you'd like to support the show further, you can do so on Patreon, patreon.com/FalcoHawkLive, or YouTube channel memberships to get some extra perks, like ad-limited episodes, access to the fantasy leagues, all that fun stuff. We appreciate everyone for helping out there. And yeah, you can always check out thefalcoholic.com for that great written content from all of our writers. And then we'll be back after the game on Sunday for our post-game coverage. And then Thanksgiving week going to be a little truncated with the holiday. I know a lot of people will be traveling, so we're not going to be doing a live on Wednesday, given, that's the day before Thanksgiving. I think I'm going to be traveling. I know a lot of people will be, so no live next week, but we will have a Tuesday Takes for you earlier in the week, and a preview for you looking at next week's game as well. So until then, guys, thank you again for hanging out. We really appreciate you. Until next time, I'm Kevin, I have Falcon. Kevin, this is Dirty Birds and Brews Podcast. We'll see you then. Have a good one, folks.